So I was perusing Twitter the other day, and I came across this banger of a tweet from Jessica Ramos. She says, "We've got to tax the rich," and simply shows this picture. Guess it's Kylie Jenner, somebody I don't know, and somebody else I don't know, who's dressed in all red with, like, red things on her. I don't know. But Kylie Jenner has a lion head. Now, my understanding is that this is not an actual lion head, that it was fake, and it was made by somebody who very clearly is really good at what they do. But when you look at this picture, yeah, this looks like Hunger Games type stuff, right? This is like Gilded Age type stuff. And I think it's at like the Paris Fashion Show or something like that. And sometimes a picture is worth not 1,000 words. Sometimes a picture is worth 1,000,000 words. So this got me thinking. This right here got me thinking. And naturally, I went down one of my rabbit holes about, like, let's see how bad this really is with the income and wealth inequality. And look, let's just go through it. This is the new Oxfam report. It just came out. The richest 1% bag nearly twice as much wealth as the rest of the world put together over the past 2 years. So 1% got twice as much as the rest of the world put together. Does that seem like it's sustainable? That seems a little bit lopsided to me. Just a little bit. It's almost like you're asking for a revolution at this point. So they go on to say billionaire fortunes are increasing by 2.7 billion a day, even as at least 1.7 billion workers now live in countries where inflation is outpacing wages. So 1.7 billion workers are losing ground as billionaires are increasing their fortune by 2.7 billion a day. A day. They go on to explain here, if you tax the top 5% of the world, a tax of up to 5% on the world's multimillionaires and billionaires, okay, so a 5% tax on all the multimillionaires and billionaires, could raise $1.7 trillion a year, and that could lift 2 billion people out of poverty. Think of how much good that would do. And we're just talking about a tax of 5%. These guys wouldn't even feel that. It would be nothing to them. They wipe their ass with 5%, and it could lift 2 billion people out of poverty. So they go on to say the richest 1% got new wealth worth $42 trillion since 2020. Again, I don't know how anybody thinks this is sustainable. I don't know how anybody can look at this state of facts and say, everything's getting better for everybody. This is great. This is looking good. I don't see any potential downsides to this. So another one for you. The top 1% officially have more money than the entire middle class in the U.S. 1% more than the entire middle class. We've talked about this one a million times. The top 1% of Americans have taken $50 trillion from the bottom 90%, and that's made the U.S. less secure. This was a Rand Corporation study that came out a few years back. Now that number, by the way, is probably well over $50 trillion. They go on to explain that if you just take the wealth disparity that we had in 1974, and you just say, hey, let's keep the disparity the same that we have it today in perpetuity. So in the future, the ratio would be the same as it was in 1974. If we just did that, everybody in the bottom 90% would have gotten an extra $1,144 every month for the rest of their life. So that's how much class war has been waged on the working class by the rich since just 1974. Right? And it ain't like that was a golden era. You know what I'm saying? Like, it ain't like everything, we had no problems back then. No. But we've significantly gotten worse since then. You guys have seen the charts of worker productivity shooting up, but wages stagnating. You guys have seen those charts. You guys have seen the numbers that if the minimum wage kept up with inflation and kept up with productivity, it'd be over $20 an hour. Over $20 an hour. The minimum wage is worth less today compared to what it was in 1967, if you account for inflation. That's astonishing. Again, workers are losing ground. They're losing ground. And then because of the Trump tax cuts in 2017, for the first time in U.S. history, billionaires paid a lower tax rate than the working class last year. So look, this is where you got to understand the difference between an effective tax rate and a nominal tax rate. The nominal tax rate is the number they write down on paper, where they say, you're supposed to pay X amount. The effective tax rate is what they actually pay, after you factor in all the loopholes and all the deductions and all the fancy schmancy garbage from the experts and the attorneys who look for these loopholes, right? Look at this chart. Look at this chart, dog. In 2018, the super rich paid a lower tax rate than the bottom 50%. Average effective tax rates of the 400 richest families and the bottom 50% of U.S. households. So you can see, back in 1960, we had the wealthy were paying significantly more as a percentage. Significantly more. Now, for the first time ever, that is not the case. And they go on to give the specifics here. I'll tell you guys. In 2018, the average effective tax rate paid by the richest 400 families in the country was 23%, a full percentage point lower than the 24.2% rate paid by the bottom half of American households. Now, if you go back to 1980, the effective tax rate was 47% for the wealthy. 47%. And again, now, we're all the way down to 23%. So understand something. They're shifting the tax burden to you. That's what they're doing. They're shifting it to you. That is what they're doing. It really, it's astonishing. By the way, the very first thing that Republicans did when they took over the House, they passed what's called the fair tax. That's what they call it. By the way, hilarious names. It is the least fair thing I've ever seen. Okay? So part of that is scrap the income tax. Scrap the income tax. Now, right-wingers might look at that and they say, I kind of like that, right? Because I don't like the income tax. Get rid of the income tax. I like getting rid of it. And you could even make an argument. People would say, oh, I think that's actually kind of populist to get rid of the income tax. Nothing could be further from the truth. Because what do they replace it with? They replace it with a sales tax, a national sales tax of 30%. By the way, they kind of lie about what the actual rate is. Some people think it's 23%. It's not. It's 30%. A 30% sales tax. Now, when you crunch the numbers on that, that is a massive, massive tax hike on the working class and the poor, and a massive tax cut for the wealthy. So they act like they're posturing like they're for the working class, as they let the rich guys run away with more money and crack down on the poor and the middle class. This is crazy. It's crazy. Now, by the way, they also virtue signal, we're getting rid of the IRS. Getting rid of the IRS? To the extent you have any federal taxes, you need a federal tax agency. This is not difficult, right? Like, that's obvious, regardless of what you think of the IRS. So in the bill, they scrap it, and then you know what else happens? They go on to admit, like, yeah, we're going to create 2 new federal tax agencies. Wait, what? So you're going to get rid of the IRS, but create 2 new federal tax... So you're doing 2 IRSs effectively, just calling it a different name? Come on, man, this is not serious. None of this stuff is serious. None of this stuff is serious. It is a war on the working class. A 30% sales tax is a regressive tax. It hurts people who need the money, and it lets the rich get away scot-free. And then I always got to bring up this chart. I mean, this chart says it all, right? This was from ProPublica. They did some great work a few years back. So they came up with what they call the true tax rate. So the actual amount of taxes paid by some of the wealthiest billionaires. And it is astonishing. So as you can see here, Warren Buffett, his wealth grew $24.3 billion, but he only paid 0.10% in taxes. What? How's that possible? Because the way the way it works is, if you have wealth growth, you're not taxed on the wealth growth, because you could just say, I'm just going to keep that in the corporation and not take it as income, and so you can't tax me on that. So, but he took $125 million as income, and he still only paid 0.10% in taxes. And remember, Warren Buffett is the guy who back in the day issued a challenge to Wall Street bankers and said, if you can prove to me that you pay a higher tax rate than your secretary does, I'll give you $1 million of my own money. And nobody was able to collect because nobody could. Because the secretary's making $70,000 a year. We're paying a higher tax rate than the millionaire CEOs. This is the same guy, and he's exploiting the same loopholes. Got Jeff Bezos, Amazon. 0.98% tax rate. And that was at a time when his wealth grew by 99 billion. 99 billion. Michael Bloomberg paid 1.30% in taxes on $22.5 billion of wealth growth and about $10 billion in income. This is astonishing. And then you have Elon Musk. Elon Musk paying the steepest rate of all of them, so props to him. He paid 3.27% on $13.9 billion in wealth creation and $1.52 billion in income that he reported. All these guys are using accounting gimmicking tricks that are probably, by the way, legal. Legal, and that's the problem. Therein lies the problem. You have to get rid of these nonsense loopholes and deductions. You have to get rid of the entire industries of the experts and the attorneys and the accountants whose whole job it is to let rich people get away with paying nothing. Because I got news for you, that tax burden gets shifted to you. That's what happens. And the right wants to raise taxes on working people as they pretend like they want to cut it. So just to reiterate here, we've got to tax the rich. I read a story the other day. Taylor Swift's cat is worth like $97 million. What are we talking about? What are we talking about? A cat is worth $97 million. You can't have that, bro. How is that? What does that even mean? I don't even understand what that means. What does that mean? You have Jeff Bezos. He has a yacht that's so big, it has a yacht. His yacht has a yacht. 63% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck. 85 million Americans are uninsured or underinsured. What are we talking about here? I can't imagine the mindset of somebody being so cucked that they oppose raising taxes on the rich. After everything I've told you, you have to be mega cucked or just drowning in right-wing propaganda to think, nah, this is good. This is good. Let the rich get away with highway robbery. No, we can't do it anymore. If you want to see me and Crystal Ball interview legends like Noam Chomsky, Cornel West, and more, subscribe to Crystal, Kyle, and Friends on Substack. $5 a month gets you the video version a day early. Remember, we take 0 ad dollars for this podcast. Or you can sign up on Substack for free and get the audio version a day later. Link in the video description box below.